just when you think you've got conference realignment all shot down and we're not going to be talking about it for an off season, and it's really ACC settlement happened, everybody's like, all right, don't really have to deal with this until like 2030 when that ACC exit fee goes way down. But now we've got to talk about it because of one school who refuses to let the conversation die, and they're talking about joining the Big 12. So one school is keeping this conversation alive, this conference realignment conversation. As I said, you got this ACC settlement that really, no pun intended, settled everything down. Florida State and Clemson had been seemingly hell-bent on bullying their way out of the conference, even if it meant that they had to go Kool-Aid Man style and just run through the brick wall and say, oh, yeah, and then get out of there. Felt like that's what was going to happen until suddenly there were some concessions made. You got the brand initiative. You got success initiatives. There's enough of a case there to keep them there until the exit fee would then drop once everybody thinks there will be a lot of movement at the end of the decade. Change the calculus on lots of this, because even if you're talking about Big 12 expansion or realignment, it was all tied to what could happen in the ACC, which would have been started at the top by your Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina type of group. That now no longer looks like it's anything that's on the table here. So I am not teasing out this segment to say, hey, it's some ACC team that is sitting here saying, oh, yeah, we would love to be in the Big 12. I think that will happen. And when I say team, I mean, these are not direct statements coming from the team. But when you consider the source here, who I will get to in just a moment, it sure seems like something like internally at the athletic department of the school is really trying to push this message of like, hey, keep this out there. Keep this out there that we could be a member of the Big 12. All right. It's not Louisville. It's not Pitt. Okay. It's more in the realm of a Gonzaga or a UConn. And in fact, probably like a diet UConn, I would say. All right. Far from the pipe dream, some Big 12 fans might have. You hear the conversation. Everyone's like, well, would Nebraska want to come back? Like, look, guys, no, nobody's coming back. Nobody's coming back. We're talking about UNLV. We're talking about UNLV. Okay. And I know a lot of you are just like, okay, John, like you're rolling your eyes at me. Like, why even bring this up? I do get it. I do understand. I kind of did that when I first saw one of these columns that mentioned this from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. But it's the big paper in Vegas. I assume that's the paper of record in Vegas, I believe. Las Vegas Review-Journal. Ed Graney is a columnist there, and he's the one that's been pushing this a couple of times. I think it was Rick Jr. on Twitter. Give him a shout out. I believe it's Rick Jr. If I got that wrong, I apologize. But I saw he had tweeted out some screenshots of things that Graney had been saying here. And I went back and found some of those columns and was like, oh, wow. Like UNLV really seems serious about this, that they think they've got a legit shot at the Big 12. Here's a column that he wrote just about a month ago. Says it has again brought up the idea of UNLV one day making a home in a Power 4 conference. It has again broached the question of whether it's a realistic goal, and it is. That's a new paragraph, standalone paragraph of 3 words, and it is. So he really seems to think that is a possibility. He says there's a growing sentiment around UNLV that landing in such a spot as, say, the Big 12 could occur sooner rather than later. Now, that is vague, but that sure sounds like not talking about waiting 5 years to the end of the decade kind of a thing. UNLV could land in a spot like the Big 12 sooner rather than later. Boy, boy, boy. Okay, let's read on here, folks. It certainly helps that UNLV now has a legitimate football program in which to feature any sort of argument toward inclusion. I mean, we got to define legitimate there, all right? And I didn't set out here to just destroy UNLV football, but you can't just slap together a couple of nice seasons under Barry Odom, which, yeah, last year they won 11 games, went 11-3, won the LA Bowl, and then they won 9 games and went to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Before that, that's nice, but man, before that, 5-7, 2-10, 0-6, 4-8, 4-8, 5-7, 4-8, 3-9, 2-11. Like there's nothing. There's one bowl game in about 23 years before the last 2 years. Okay, so like I don't think having 2 nice years with Barry Odom and then hiring a former SEC coach and Dan Mullen makes it a legitimate football program. But I digress. That's the narrative. That's the narrative from UNLV being pushed here. Barry Odom, I'm reading back from the column now. Barry Odom brought the team to historic levels before departing for Purdue, and it's expected Mullen can follow with just as good or even better product. Football is king. It's a significant step for UNLV. That for decades it was an eyesore. The Big 12 would see this vast improvement as a major piece to the puzzle when deciding whether or not UNLV is a good fit. There was some talk about facilities. There was some talk about it being the sports capital of the world, which that part, look, to me, like that's the column. Hey, it's the sports and entertainment capital of the world. Brett Yormark loves things like that. He moved Big 12 Media Days last year to Vegas simply because of that. As a marketing guy thinking about global brands and pushing the Big 12 brand as much as possible, having a school in Vegas could be attractive to him. I think like that's your column. But then it's like, okay, but that makes sense. Nice headline. That's a good facade. What's actually in there? It feels to me a little bit like those like, I'm thinking of the movie The Interview, right? Where they're like in North Korea and there's just like it looks like there's all these great buildings, but then when you actually get close to it, it's just like a cardboard cutout. There's nothing actually in there. And that's a nice front. It's a nice facade, but where's the substance in there? Just a couple of years and then hiring Dan Mullen. I don't think that's really the substance. Yormark loves basketball. What has UNLV basketball really been for a while? It talks about UNLV as a top tier research institution, a medical school, and a law school, which, great. Those are very nice sprinkles on top of a cupcake. If you're talking about adding a team to a conference, it's by no means, again, the substance that is going to get you in there. Shout out to Eric Harper. He's the athletic director at UNLV. He played football at K-State back in the early Bill Snyder days. That's basically the case being made here. Anybody convinced that this is a good ad? Now, if UNLV rips off, here's what I would say back. I don't mean to be too flippant here and too just like mean to a school that I'm sure really wants to get in. I would just say that's some real ballsy confidence to be talking about. We think this could happen sooner rather than later when, like Brett Yormark tried really hard to get UConn. That came up multiple times to get UConn, who has the best basketball program in the country. Something Yormark loves, an initiative of his clearly, is to break off the basketball media rights, sell them separately. That is a big, big thing. And he's got the best of the best there. And UConn football has been a little bit better now with Jim Mora, right? Not quite the eyesore that it was before. And with that incredible basketball program, there was no movement there, no juice for it. Gonzaga, a little bit different, obviously. They don't have football, but another thing Brett Yormark couldn't push through. So you think then they're going to be able to push through UNLV and split that pie another way in terms of the money that you're dividing? When we're talking about the Big 12 might need to go private equity to bring enough money into the conference right now to keep up with everybody, you're going to split that pie then another way and take money away from schools to bring in UNLV? To me, this is just like the say it out loud test, man. Say it out loud test. That doesn't make much sense. Here's how I would level. If UNLV suddenly becomes like Boise, they go on like a Boise run, make a playoff, win a game, have your Fiesta Bowl moment like Boise did against Oklahoma way back when. If that happens and Dan Mullen really is a superstar there, I guess maybe then we're talking. That would be back-to-back coaches that were good hires. Maybe you're looking at that saying, hey, facilities are better, resources are there to still be pretty competitive. I don't know. I think there's a lot of work to do. But I keep reading. I'm not even done with the column. Here's another line from it. The Big 12 whispers continue to grow louder behind the scenes. So what UNLV did was make in its mind the best possible deal with the Mountain West until such would possibly become reality. So they're making the point. Basically, they didn't go to the Pac-12. They stuck it out in the Mountain West because they're waiting for the Big 12. Which, hey, I mean that I don't really blame them for that, but I don't know, man. I would put the odds of this in a pretty similar spot to like I sit here and think, hey, I really want Project Rudy to happen. And there maybe you can see like the path maybe to how you would get there, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly likely at all. Kind of the same thing here for a UNLV Big 12 inclusion at some point. But you know what? If we go to Project Rudy, 70 teams are getting included. Okay, so maybe that'll happen for UNLV. Maybe that will happen. Anyway, my thoughts on that.